Picture this. You're doing everything right. Hitting the gym, eating what you think is a decent diet, maybe even cutting out the obvious junk. You feel fine, nothing alarming, but something subtle has been happening underneath the surface for years. And nobody told you. Not your doctor, not your friends, definitely not the company selling you the product. And the part that should actually bother you, it's probably sitting in your kitchen right now. Let me ask you something. Have you ever stopped to think about what the food industry has done to the average man's body over the last 3 decades? Not in a conspiracy way, in a completely documented, peer-reviewed, this is actually happening way. Because there's a particular food hiding in almost every processed product on shelves that has a direct hormonal effect on the male body. The effect isn't subtle. It's measurable, it's progressive, and most men consuming it have absolutely no idea. The food is soy. Stay with me, because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I don't eat soy, I'm not drinking soy lattes. But soy is hiding in foods that have nothing to do with health food culture. It's in bread, protein bars, fast food, it's in the vegetable oils and the processed snacks, and even the chicken feed that ends up in your grocery store chicken. It's invisible, and that invisibility is the whole problem. Think about it. The average man has no idea that soy contains compounds called phytoestrogens, specifically isoflavones. And what isoflavones do in the body is mimic estrogen, not trigger it. Mimic it. They bind to estrogen receptors in the male body and send signals that were never supposed to be there. And one of the most direct downstream effects of that interference is what happens to testosterone levels over time. This is the part nobody talks about. And I didn't fully understand it myself until I looked at the actual research. Testosterone isn't just about libido. It governs muscle density, fat distribution, drive, energy, and yes, sexual health in the most literal physical sense. When something quietly lowers your testosterone over years, you don't feel it like a switch flipping. You feel it like a slow fog settling in. Your edge gets duller. You look in the mirror and something's slightly off, but you can't name it. Most men never connect that back to the food because why would they? Let me get real for a second. Studies show that men consuming high amounts of soy-based products over extended periods show measurable reductions in testosterone and measurable changes in physical sexual characteristics, including penile tissue health. Not hypothetically, in documented human cases. One widely cited case involved a man whose testosterone had dropped so dramatically from a high soy diet that physicians were alarmed. When soy was removed from his diet, his levels began recovering. Do you see what that actually means? This isn't fear-mongering. It's biology. The male endocrine system is sensitive to estrogenic compounds in ways most men are unaware of, largely because no one in the supply chain benefits from you knowing. The companies putting soy in everything are not going to label it a hormonal risk. The marketing says heart-healthy, plant-based, clean eating, and men keep consuming it while wondering why their drive is lower or why their body composition keeps shifting in ways that don't match their effort. And here's what really should make you stop and think. The amount of soy in the Western food supply increased dramatically starting in the 1990s. It became a cheap filler, a cheap protein extender, a cheap oil source across nearly every food category. The timeline of that increase runs almost perfectly parallel to documented drops in average male testosterone levels across Western populations. That's not a coincidence you can wave away. So the question isn't, whether this is affecting some men. The real question is whether it's affecting you, and whether you'd even know. Most men reading labels aren't looking for soy lecithin. They're not catching soybean oil in the ingredient list. They're not thinking about the soy protein isolate in their protein powder. The cumulative hormonal effect builds quietly across years. And that's exactly the trap. Not a dramatic event you can point to. A slow erosion that gets mistaken for normal aging when it's actually avoidable. The guy who understands this moves through the world differently. He doesn't walk a grocery store the same way anymore. Not because he's scared of food, but because he's actually paying attention. There's a real difference between those two versions of a man. One is reactive, letting the food industry make decisions by default. The other is intentional, making deliberate choices about what goes into his body every single day. That shift in how you see yourself as someone who protects his own physiology, rather than just consuming whatever's convenient, that's where something actually changes. So here's where this lands practically. Start reading labels like someone who has something to protect. Prioritize whole protein sources. Cook with real oils instead of vegetable oil blends loaded with soy. Cut the processed bars and the grab-and-go junk that quietly carries soy fillers. And if you want a real picture of where your hormonal health sits right now, get your testosterone tested. Baseline it. Because you cannot protect what you haven't measured, and most men are guessing. The men who take this seriously are the ones who feel different at 45 than they expected to. Not coasting through the decline that most men just accept as part of getting older. And the starting point, more often than people realize, is as unglamorous as what you're eating on a Tuesday without thinking about it. You've been informed. What you do with it is on you.